Listening, fill in the blanks.
Let's start.
The researchers carried out a set of experiments on volunteers to test how objects' weight, texture, and hardness unconsciously shape judgments about other people. The results, published in the journal Science, make fascinating reading. In one experiment, 86 volunteers were invited to a lab, seated in either wooden chairs or soft seats, and asked to imagine shopping for a new car at a dealer's. After being told the sticker price of the car, they were invited to write down their first offer price and a second price, assuming the dealer rejected the first offer. Those in hard chairs were less flexible in their haggling skills and were far less willing to drop their prices during the negotiations, the researchers found.
The study found that the bird's unique bone structures and vascular systems let them move with increased flexibility. Scientists at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in the U.S. studied snowy, barred, and great horned owls after their deaths from natural causes. They found that the vertebral artery enters the neck higher than in other birds, creating more slack. Unlike humans, owls were found to have small vessel connections between the carotid and vertebral arteries, allowing the blood to be exchanged between the two blood vessels. This creates an uninterrupted blood flow to the brain, even if one route is blocked during extreme neck rotation.
Researchers say these contractile blood reservoirs act as a trade-off, allowing birds to pool blood to meet the energy needs of their large brains and eyes, while they rotate their heads. The supporting vascular network, with its many interconnections and adaptations, helps minimize any interruption in blood flow. The study results demonstrate what physical properties are needed to allow such extreme head movements, and explain why injuries sustained from treatments that involve manipulating bones with the hands, such as chiropractic therapy, can have such serious consequences for humans. Dr. Gail Loud added, "Our new study results show precisely what morphological adaptations are needed to handle such head gyrations and why humans are so vulnerable to bone injury from chiropractic therapy." Extreme manipulations of the human head are really dangerous because we lack so many of the vessel-protecting features seen in owls.
It is far more creative to work with the idea of mindfulness rather than with the idea of will. Too often people try to change their lives by using the will as a kind of hammer to beat their lives into shape. If you work with a different rhythm, you will come easily and naturally home to yourself. Your soul knows the geography of your destiny. Your soul alone has the map of your future, therefore, you can trust this indirect, oblique side of yourself. If you do, it will take you where you need to go.
In discussing solitary lives, we should ignore the colemotoidans, financially independent people who realize that, for them, living alone brings more advantages than otherwise. Most people of my generation had such a stage in their lives, between university and settling down, but we didn't want it to last forever. In any case, with property prices as they are, such self-selected solitude is not an option for much of the succeeding generation. Set aside, too, those figures pertaining to the very elderly. Not because there aren't real problems faced by those, usually female, survivors, but because their existence is a function of the uneven impact of medical advances and lifestyle changes on the longevity of each of the genders.
The most striking finding came after researchers injected dye into the owl's arteries, mimicking blood flow, and manually turned the animals' heads. They found that when they turned the heads, the blood vessels below the jawbone expanded as more dye entered, creating pools of blood capable of maintaining the energy supply to the brain and eyes. They showed that the big carotid arteries, instead of being on the side of the neck as in humans, are carried close to the center of rotation just in front of the spine. As a consequence, these arteries experience much less twisting and turning. The potential for damage is therefore greatly reduced.
The good storyteller, who had a large repertoire stored in his memory, seated at his own fireside, in an honored place in the house of a neighbor, or at a wake, was assured of an attentive audience on winter nights. Nor was it only adults who wished to hear tales. My father described to me how himself and other children of 8 years of age would spend hours, night after night, listening to an old woman storyteller in South Kerry, and an old man in the same area told me that, as a youth, he and his companions used to do all the household chores for an elderly neighbor each winter evening in order that he might be free to spend the night telling them long folk tales.
Europe's largest IT company, Otto's Origin, intends to scrap internal emails altogether. Its staff will still use email to correspond with clients and other businesses, but to talk among themselves they will adopt a variety of newer services such as instant messaging services and older methods, namely talking face-to-face. The company's chairman prompted headlines around the world when he mentioned he had not sent an email in more than 3 years. But in fact, a number of companies have been quietly moving away from using email as the primary way of communicating within the company. Intel, for example, has been experimenting with No Email Fridays, encouraging its engineers to solve problems by phone or face-to-face instead.
The researchers found that the volunteers were unaware of the effect that color had on their thinking and suggest that the findings could be used for anything from choosing the interior decoration of a school or university to the marketing of products and services. Previous research produced contradictory conclusions in terms of the benefit or otherwise of exposing people to a background color of red or blue while asking them to carry out a thinking task, according to Julia Chu of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, who carried out the study published in the journal Science. Prior research found conflicting results in terms of which color, red or blue, leads to better performance, said Dr. Chu. We show that if the task requires detailed attention, red will help more, but if the task is creative in nature, blue will be more beneficial. It really depends on the nature of the task.
Like, share, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon for further updates.